And tell your friends and colleagues, because this will be available through our website and through the Black Homeownership Collaborative website. And we will love to have more people, especially get this information from this afternoon. We're going to hear a lot about what's happening locally, what's happening nationally, and how we're going to work together to move the ball. I do want to make a point now of unveiling the latest iteration of a new website that is going to be on the 3by30.org site. So when we first launched the initiative, we had a website called 3by30.org. And this site was really built for policymakers, and it talked about, can we put the site up? And the slide down? Oh, there it is. Okay. So when we first started this initiative, we created this website that really brought together the work of all of the 7 work streams, talked about the different elements of homeownership in the Black community that we're working on. It talked about our various committee members, and now we have our annual report on there, and all the many, many stakeholders who've been working with us on putting this together. It's really quite an impressive list. And then in the news and resources section. But the idea for the site ultimately was that it would be a resource for the Black consumer, because we have 3 million mortgage-ready Black renters in this country who are choosing to rent. And frankly, many of them are making that choice because they have personal or family experience with homeownership, and it was not good. During the run-up to the Great Recession, we saw hundreds of thousands of Black families who had good mortgages, and their equity was stripped through serial refinancing into toxic mortgages. And that's one of the reasons why we saw such a disproportionately severe impact of the crisis. You know, the false narrative is that, and it's true in some cases, but the false narrative that's very popular is that, you know, irresponsible people bought homes they couldn't afford with toxic mortgages. And the reality for certainly the majority of people in the Black community was that people who had good mortgages that they had gotten from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA in the 90s or earlier were serially refinanced into toxic mortgages until they had no equity left at all. And then when the recession came, they had nothing left to fall back on. And when you have that experience in your family, everybody you know and everybody who knows about it has an attitude about homeownership that is based on experience, not on myth. And so we have to work to really turn that around, because we've changed so much in how we lend today and really refined. We've learned a lot of lessons from the past. But we also want to have not predatory lenders, but predatory consumers. People who shop for a house just like they shop for a car, or they shop for, you know, whatever it is they're buying. They look at what the prices is. They say, this person is charging me too much. This person is offering me a good deal. We do this thinking, but when we get into buying a house, we often just freeze, and we don't think about it the way we could be. And so this plan, this new website is designed, now the landing page for 3by30.org is going to help Black consumers understand what are the benefits of homeownership, what is the process for buying a home, and what about down payment assistance? Did you know that there are 2,000 down payment assistance programs in this country? Now, many of us have been fighting to get significant funding for down payment assistance funded by the federal government. $100 billion is needed to do it right. The Build Back Better bill had $10 billion in it. But the fact is that even if we don't get a dollar, there are programs all around the country that are doing this right now, and people need to know what they are. They need to know how to get them, and they also need to understand the process of buying a home and the facts. What's their credit score? What is credit? How does that work? What is a good credit and not? A lot of people have great credit and don't even know it. They just assume that they don't have good credit because they've heard about that, and they believe that they're going to get a 20%. They have to have a 20% down payment because every mortgage calculator online starts with 20% because the payment's lower. But when you see that number, you think, I can't do that. The reality is you could put down 3%. You could put down 0% with some mortgages, and certainly 5%. And that's very in reach for many, many people who are mortgage ready today, who have good credit scores. The way Freddie Mac defines a mortgage ready is you have a credit score of over 700. You have a DTI in the range that doesn't require any additional underwriting, and that you are making over $100,000 a year. And so these folks are ready now, and we need to help them make an informed choice. So one of the things that we're going to have here is that a direct link to a great resource, down payment assistance resource. And I think the CEO of Down Payment Resource is here today. I'm going to wait. Thank you for being here. And this is an incredible tool. What you can do here is you just see if you're eligible, and what you do is you say here, so I'm living in a county, city, or neighborhood, my single family, my estimated purchase price, household. I'm not going to go through all of this, but you fill all this in, and then it will tell you exactly what are the down payment assistance programs in your community that are available to you. And I filled this out in Washington, D.C. There were like 6 different programs. The other thing that we have in this site is, and we're starting with a calculator from a company called Essent, but it's, I'm going to go in here. This was in a separate site. Here we go. This isn't my computer, so and then we're going to have here where you can go to the affordability calculator, and we're building this out ourselves. But the thing I like about the Essent IQ is it doesn't start with how much money you're going to put down, 20%, 15%, 10%. It starts with how much money you have. How much money have I saved already, and how much money am I going to get in a gift or down payment assistance? What's my credit score, which we're going to be able to have enter automatically for free, and then how much house? And then you put in the interest rate, 4%, that would be nice. And then what you'll see here is as you change these factors, see if I make this 17,000, make it 20,000, you can see the mortgage payment goes down. You know exactly, and you're like, I can afford that. And so this is what we're building off of, and I think that's going to really help people. The other thing is that we want people to be able to find a real estate professional and a lender. And so what we're doing here is that on this site, and we're still building these out, but if you look here at the states, you go to Georgia, okay? And then now we're going to say we have 17 results here of names. We're actually adding these names in literally as we speak. And so these are real estate professionals, realtists and realtors who are in your area, who you can call right now. So as a result of the 3x30 site, we're going to, for people who are ready, we want them to see you. Like, if you're ready, we want them to see you now. We don't want them to go to a counselor because they don't need a counselor. And if they're not ready for you, we want them to know that and not be embarrassed, but to go directly to a counselor so they can get ready for you. And so this is the site I want to just make special thanks to the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. they came to us and they said, how can we do more? We want to be involved in this. And we talked to them about this dream we had of building out this website. We weren't quite ready to do it yet, but they gave us the resources, a $50,000 grant, and we were able to hire web designers and build this out. We're continuing to work with it. And when you go to 3x30, and everybody in this room and everybody who's watching online or sees this in the future, this is a beta version. Your feedback is a part of the design of this site. We want you to look at this language. We want you to look at how it's structured. We want to look at what's not there that you think should be there and tell us. If it's worded in a way that you think that's not going to be effective with my consumers, I want to know. I want you to tell me how I need to word it, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing as the steering committee. We're going to be going over this language on an ongoing basis. This is going to be a living document, and so your feedback and your experience is essential to us. So with that, now we're going to welcome up our first panel, and and Jung Choi is going to come up and welcome our first panel. And Jung is with the Urban Institute, and she was essential to helping us really approach this from a very technical, data-driven approach. She's done incredible research for us and for the Urban Institute, and she was the one who was able to help us see, yeah, 3 million, that's going to be really, really hard, but it's doable. And I was like, that's what we want. We want really, really hard, but doable. So thank you, Jung, for being here.
So hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I would personally like to tell a good story while you're enjoying your lunch, but I'm going to show you a lot of numbers today. These are the numbers that highlight some of the racial disparities in Atlanta housing market, and I'll just, okay, so. And I would also like to mention that we have just released a report on Atlanta housing market. So if you're more interested, we can also share the link after this event. So, and then this research has been supported by NAFA, Keys to Unlock Dreams initiative, which I think Lori Benner is going to talk more about in the second panel. So, okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so I was told not to be freaked out when this happens. But the next slide shows that I don't think you have to see the numbers, that you all know that Atlanta has a high share of African American people. So about 44% of population at the city of Atlanta is Black people, and about a third of the people in Atlanta MSA are African Americans. So let's see if, okay. And then we also all know that Atlanta was one of the 150 MSA with a Hulk map. So there was fewer capital and investments in the Black neighborhoods. So what the numbers I'm showing you today is also a result of all the past discriminatory practice that happened in the housing market throughout history. And right now, there's still okay, so now it works. So in the right side here, what you see is that it's called the Similarity Index, and it's sort of measuring how Black and white lives in different neighborhoods. And what the number shows you right there is 66 to 7%. And what this means is that in order for white and Black people to be equally distributed in Atlanta, about 67% of Black people needs to move to another neighborhood. So this shows that there is still a stark residential segregation in the city. And then, as I think Elena already talked about some of the numbers here, but then we see that in the city of Atlanta, homeownership rate is actually 20 percentage point lower than the whole nation, and also compared to the MSA. And we also find that, I'll show you in the coming slides, that the income and the home prices are not much different from the nation. So it's very puzzling why in the city of Atlanta, the homeownership rate is 20 percentage point lower than the national rate. And we also see that, I think it was also mentioned in some of the previous people that was on the stage, that among all households, Black households, unfortunately, again, experienced the greatest decline in the homeownership following the Great Recession. So between years 25 and 2019, there's about 8 percentage point drop in the Black homeownership rate in the city and about 6 percentage point drop in the homeownership rate in the MSA. And we see that for other race and ethnic groups, there has been some recovery since 2012. So this slide shows that not only there's homeownership disparities, we mentioned about the appraisal gap earlier on, but then there's also disparities in home prices. So the median home prices of Black homeowners is actually about $170,000 lower than the median home values of the white households in this city. And because of this disparities in both homeownership and housing value, Black households only own about 17% of primary residential wealth in the city, in contrast to the fact that they actually account for 44% of all households. So there is a great wealth gap in the city among across race and ethnicity. And as I mentioned earlier, overall, there's not much income gaps compared to the nation in Atlanta. But again, we do see that there's a large racial disparities of income, especially in the city. So we actually, if the yellow line represents Black households, and we kind of see that that line has been pretty much stable over time, while you kind of see that there has been some increases in income for other race and ethnic groups. So in the city of Atlanta in particular, there has been a widening income disparities across race and ethnic groups. And we all know that home prices have increased substantially over time. So I'm just gonna take a look at the graph on the right side. So yellow line shows the prices of the lower price homes. So you can see that the yellow line on the right is much more volatile. And as I mentioned before, Black households are more likely to own homes that are lower price. That means that homes that are owned by Black households experience a greater price volatility. And you can see that following the Great Recession, there was a steep decline in the lower price homes, indicating that a lot of Black households lost substantial amount of wealth during this period. And unfortunately, this led for many households to foreclose on their properties. But you can also see that from 2012, there has been a huge increase, a higher growth rate of the lower priced tier homes in this area, meaning that if those households were able to sustain their homeownership, they would have largely recovered their wealth. But now, because a lot of them lost their homes and home prices have soared, it's becoming more and more difficult for them to access homeownership. So the housing supply, this graph shows that both in the city and the MSA, the housing supply has fallen behind housing demand. So there has been a decline in active listings. And one of the things that were mentioned was the role of institutional investors and cash buyers. And Atlanta MSA in April, about 43% of homes were bought by cash buyers. And there has been a huge increase during the pandemic. And among all homes that were purchased, about 33% were bought by investors. And this 33% is highest among all metropolitan areas in the nation. And there has been a recent research out there by a professor by Georgia Tech that shows that the rise in institutional investors has the most negative impact on Black households. So we also know that, unfortunately, Black households experience a higher denial rate when they apply for mortgages. So in Atlanta City, about 1/5 of Black households were denied from getting a mortgage, and that rate is about more than three times higher than white borrowers. In the MSA, the denial rate for black households were about 17%, and that's again more than double the denial rate for white borrowers. And credit is an important factor of why people get declined of mortgage, and we see that there is a greater, this graph on the right shows there's a higher share of black borrowers without a credit scores or credit scores below 600. So finally, I want to kind of end with some of the numbers provided by Freddie Mac, which is the number of mortgage-ready black young adults who have credit characteristics and income to apply for a mortgage. And there is about 200,000 mortgage-ready black young adults aged between 18 and 45 who has credit characteristics that they can apply for a mortgage. So that is, but however, because as I mentioned, there's a greater increase of investors' activity and rise in home prices, and unfortunately, there has also been a rise in interest rate. So what we also find is that with 3.2 interest rate, which is already outdated within like the past week, among the mortgage-ready young black adults, only 14% can buy a home in this area. And Freddie Mac actually gave us the number before a couple of months using 3.2% interest rate. And back then, among the mortgage-ready young adults, black adults, about 28% were able to afford a home in this area. But within the past couple of months, that rate dropped to 14%. So there has been a decline, a 50% decline in those who can afford a home in this area over a very short period of time. So to sum up, I'm just going to summarize quickly. So despite similar level of income, we see that the homeownership rate in the city of Atlanta is about 20 percentage point lower than the national homeownership rate. And among all race and ethnic groups, black households experience a continuous decline in the homeownership rate over the past 10 years. And they currently only own about 17% of all aggregated housing wealth in the area. So we did see that there has been increase in investors' activity, and also because of rising rent amidst low housing supply and tight credit, it's very likely that black households would likely to face greater difficulty in obtaining homeownership. So I'm hoping that the next panel is going to come on the stage right now will provide us some of more hopeful solutions of what we can do to address this problem altogether. And I thank you again for providing me this opportunity to.
That's a lot of pressure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashani Omard, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Strategic Housing Investments at the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership. Thank you for being with us this afternoon and earlier this morning. Hopefully everybody is well fed. Don't get the itis, because we still have a lot to talk about, and we're going to try to condense our conversation. I'm going to ask the panelists to join me now. In the interest of time, we're going to try to go a little fast. One of our esteemed panelists actually has a flight to catch, so we're going to try to move this along as quickly as possible. But while they are joining us, I did think it would be helpful to just go over really quickly some of the highlights we've discussed today. Certainly, we've talked about the good news, which Jung just shared with us, having 200,000 mortgage-ready black households is a huge, huge opportunity for Atlanta, and poises us in a way, positions us in a way for us to really lead the work going forward for the nation. But we've also talked about a lot of our barriers that we have. One thing that we should also level set, and many of you already know this, is typically speaking, in a healthy housing market, you have about 4 to 6 months of housing supply. Nationally, right now, we have about 2.2 months of supply. And here in Atlanta, we have about 1.2 months of supply. So we've heard about the role of the pressures from investor activity. That can range from 30% to 43% that we've just heard, which is also really impacting our market and the ability, especially for first-time home buyers, to enter the market and to actually purchase starter homes. Another piece I wanted to lift up is our home prices are increasing. Back in March, we had, I think it was like 397,000 was sort of the average home median price here in Atlanta. And then in April, it went up to about, I think it was 410,000, and in May, it's 430,000. We're not quite at Austin, Texas levels, which is 600,000, but this is significant for Atlanta as we look at making sure that home ownership is still attainable. So as I sort of switch now to introduce our panelists, one of the things we really want to focus on is how do we keep the dream of Black home ownership alive here in our backyard. And our experts are here to share what their organizations are doing and how we can be partnered, how we can partner with them. So I'll start with Mr. Courtney English, who is our a senior advisor for City of Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, Dr. Christy Cade, who we heard from earlier, a vice president of the Southern Region for Neighborworks America. Ms. Loretta Williamson is the senior vice president of Mortgage Strategic Growth for Truist Bank, and Ms. Nancy Flake Johnson is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. Thank you all. Please join me in thanking them. So our first question is going to be for all of our panelists. Would love for you to just share a little bit more about your organization or agency and how you are advancing Black homeownership in the metro area, and any perspectives you can share in terms of challenges that you're facing in moving those strategies forward.
Ooh, sure. Do I have to go first?
Yes.
I'm just thinking about that good news I'm supposed to bring after that. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be with you all. It's a pleasure to be with such a distinguished group of panelists and experts. I'm here to learn just like everyone else, and so I look forward to this conversation. My name is Courtney English. I serve as the Senior Policy Advisor for Mayor Andre Dickens, and this conversation generally is at the center of what this mayor is all about. When we talk about home ownership, that's one aspect of it, but what we're really talking about in Atlanta is closing these long-standing equity gaps that we've seen. A kid born into poverty in Atlanta has a 4% chance of escaping poverty in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And really, when you unpeel all of the layers that pour into that horrific stat, it's all about home ownership. It's all about a lack of wealth, right? And so in order to close those gaps, we've got to do everything that we can to make sure folks can get into homes, sustain home ownership, and ultimately build wealth over the course of their lifetime. And so for us, the city has a $100 million housing bond that we're going to deploy with significant resources dovetailed, especially for home ownership, down payment assistance, owner-occupied rehab, and ensuring folks have access to counsel so that they know how to draft their wills and that their homes don't get lost in the shuffle when folks pass away. That's backed by a $27 million affordable housing trust fund that this mayor just allocated an additional $7 million to. And in his first budget, he highlighted or earmarked $65 million alone for affordable housing generally across a number of different buckets. And so housing is at the center of everything that this mayor is all about. And so I look forward to the conversation. But those are just a few things that we're looking at to ensure folks have access to the resources they need to get in and ultimately stay in their homes.
Thank you. Dr. Cade?
Thank you. So Neighborworks America is a national organization, and we invest directly into 250 housing corporations in the 50 states, DC, and Puerto Rico. So we have set forth a core intention for us for the last 40 years has been home ownership. It is central to what we do and who we are. But we've undergirded that with really focusing, and not just now, not just in the last 2 years, but really focusing on Black home ownership, understanding that there is a great need. We ran into the fire. And so when I say that, what that means is that we invested our money. We didn't just put our mouths where the issues were and put forth initiatives, but we ran into the fire and we brought partners with us. One of the things we did, we're celebrating 10 years of helping 25,000 homeowners through a partnership with Wells Fargo called the LIFT program. Many of you are partners in that, and we launched that here in Atlanta. We're continuing to do that throughout the country with other partners, knowing that we need to leverage resources and not just have our resources, but we need to leverage. This is a multi-trillion-dollar issue. The gap is huge. It's from ocean to ocean and sea to sea. And so it's not just one drop in the bucket. We also provide training and tools for the entire ecosystem around homeownership, from housing counseling, for mortgage lenders, for home builders, through our national institutes that we offer. Anyone that's looking to be able to do anything in this arena can come to those training institutes and learn, partner with their peers, meet investors who are also interested in advancing homeownership. But we've set all of that on top of an equity initiative saying that it has to be equitable. We just can't say home ownership and then, no, we counted the numbers because we helped homeowners, but we had to be equitable and identify where and who and with whom we were doing it. To that end, we have actually pulled forth Black census tracts. Are we doing work there? Specifically in Atlanta, where Ashani works, ANDP, or the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, is one of our CDFIs. So we've partnered with them, invested in their CDFIs to bring forth innovative programs that are now being piloted across the country. One specific part of that pilot is bringing on Black developers who will develop in targeted Black neighborhoods on vacant lots, bringing forth quality homes, not just homes, but quality, affordable homes, and making sure that those are made available. But not just in Black neighborhoods, but other communities of opportunity. Where do we need to build so that we're not just dealing with the cultural competencies that we need in communities where we already are, but in other communities as well. We're partnering with other partners to provide training and development for CDFIs who provide other types of funding, because there are pathways we heard about today, but there's some new pathways that need to be established to help individuals get homes, to participate in the programs that the city is doing, and to undergird the need that we have at all levels of income for home buyers that are looking to buy a home. As Ashani said, the prices are getting high, but the incomes aren't. And so we want to make sure that we are creating that gap. Is not just that individuals need to be able to get into homes, but they also need to afford the homes, and they also need to have homes where there's opportunity for them. So those are the investments that we're making.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Loretta Williamson from Truist Bank. This is actually my first time to Atlanta, surprisingly, and
welcome.
Thank you. And I actually walked around. I'm at the Hyatt downtown, and I walked around, and literally everywhere I turned, there was a Truist Bank. So for those of you that are familiar, SunTrust Mortgage and BB&T merged to form Truist. And I can tell you that during the height of the pandemic, we did launch what's called our Community Benefits Plan. And in that plan, we are providing up to $7,500 in down payment and closing cost assistance in specific MSAs, including Atlanta, for low to moderate income borrowers. And we've seen a lot of success in that program. It has definitely helped. I know we talked about the housing inventory issue. We can't necessarily fix that, but we do know that down payment assistance is one of the biggest barriers when it comes to purchasing a home. Mm-hmm. So along with that, in our community benefits plan, that up to $7,500 in down payment assistance and closing costs, we also partner with various trade associations such as NAREB. We have a great relationship with them. We work with various nonprofit organizations. Archie Emerson, so glad if she's still here, but we work with various nonprofit organizations that will first start to help from an educational perspective, because we know it starts there. So what you were speaking about, we have to make sure that we're sustaining the home. So it's one thing to go through counseling to get into that home, but how are we making sure that they actually stay in that home? Because we know that's a big concern as well. So Truist is definitely partnering with all of our local organizations to really help continue to put more of our minority borrowers inside of houses. And we also want to look at inclusive lending overall. So, you know, we talk a lot about affordable housing when it comes to low to moderate income, when we're thinking about that 80% area median income that we always hear about. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that minority borrowers can purchase wealth as well. We have money, we have the ability to purchase outside of just that area median income perspective. So those are one of the things that my team at Strategic Growth, we work with. We partner with all of the various organizations, but we're looking at overall inclusive lending for minority borrowers. We know that low to moderate income is just as important, but we also don't want to lose sight of making sure that all of our minorities have that ability regardless of their income level. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
So Urban League of Greater Atlanta is a HUD-certified housing counseling agency. And I dare say we became one very soon after HUD passed in 1968 the act that allows for community-based organizations to deliver those services. So Neighborworks is a big supporter of our work. Truist is a big supporter of our work. Wells, most of the financial institutions do support our work. And so really for Black home ownership, it really starts first, I believe, with education. You know, really making sure our community is clear the path to home ownership and the value and the critical role that home ownership plays in laying a foundation for building wealth. And so every month, practically every month of the year, we host full-day HUD-certified first-time homebuyer workshops. They're free. They've been free since the pandemic hit. And one bit of good news I can deliver is our folks are interested and want to own. Because of one of the good things of the pandemic, it pushed us to virtual platforms. And prior to that, all of our workshops were in person. We'd host them here, Atlanta Tech, around the community. And we would, for the most part, you know, max 75 to 100 people, you know. And now I remember the biggest number, we had 516 people on our virtual platform. And this was early in the pandemic. People, even in crisis, said, I need to learn how to get my house in order, right? So full day, soup to nuts, we explain how to prepare to be a homeowner, starting with analyzing your credit, looking at your household budget, you know, teaching people the importance of savings and decreasing debt and increasing score, and how to maintain the score, and how to calculate what can I afford. That's one of the big problems many Black homeowners fell into during the Great Recession. We had purchased homes we really couldn't afford using what turned out to be predatory, in many cases, mortgage products, you know, balloon payments, adjustable rates, and all those things that thankfully have gone by the way. But we're teaching people now about those tools and how to recognize predatory lending, because predators are out there. They're, you know, to your point now, many people have equity. They're being hounded for, you know, home equity loans at, you know, crazy rates, and, you know, getting people in trouble all over again. So not only, though, do we prepare people, we, through the workshop itself, we have HUD-certified housing counselors that are available to help you figure out your personal situation. We can do a soft pull of your credit score. We help you analyze it, figure out what's best for you and your family. And we encourage people, even if you know you're not yet ready, come to the course. Learn. So all you have to know is that someday I want to own. And so that's what's up. So what are some of the, well, the other thing I'll say to the other equation is to the sustainability. We offer loss mitigation counseling as well. And of course, during the pandemic, just unbelievable situations. I'm so excited to share. Just last week, we were awarded $1.1 million by DeKalb County for mortgage assistance. Wow. Strictly mortgage assistance, yes. And I'll tell you, the state, the Department of Community Affairs, has over $350 million that has come from Congress to the state, and sadly, that plus another 400 plus million that has not yet been deployed for even rental assistance. That's the other huge thing. I know we're here to talk about home ownership, but please know, tons of people that look like us are homeless. They're living in motels and extended stays, the most expensive cost. And so it's just heartbreaking to see that. But we do that work as well. And so we're here to really just be a supporter. Coming up for us, we will be able to announce an official soon, but there's a collaborative that has formed that will allow Urban League to be the lead on a BIPOC home ownership portal. And David has raised his hand to say, hey, you see what we're doing? Maybe we can collaborate. And so I'm excited. We definitely want to connect everyone to the tools they have. But we'll be doing all we can to bring together builders, developers, homeowners. Our biggest challenge right now, inventory. Inventory. Most first-time home buyers are looking for a home in the $250,000 to $300,000 range or less. And you heard, our houses are starting at $397,000 is the median and going up from there. So that's our biggest issue right now, is that. So in the meantime, you know, we've just got to have people continuing to save. The other thing is our mortgage down payment assistance programs are behind this curve because there's caps on the houses you can use it for at $325,000. Wow. We're above that now. So what's a down payment assistance program gonna do for you, right? And then that takes a while. Sometimes the programs take too long and you're out of queue. You know, the house is gone and you're in the process of trying to make that work. So we have some things to do to tweak the resources, but we're in it to win it.
Thank you for that. And
and I have to introduce real quick our Senior Director for Housing and Wealth Building. I want to introduce Johnette Brown. Stand up. If you need anything in Atlanta, she's your person. And Cy Richardson, I think you've already met from the National Urban League, and you'll hear from Mark Morreale later. Thank you so much. And I hate to run, but I do have to catch a flight. Johnette's here if you need anything else from the Urban League. Okay. I better go this way. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Everybody give her a hand.
See you soon, Nancy.
Awesome. Well, we will, since we have a new visitor to Atlanta, I will start with Courtney. Our mayor earlier talked about how Atlanta influences everything, and we've talked a little bit about, that's something that we say around here. There are T-shirts, this whole movement, Loretta. But just going back to this huge opportunity we have with 200,000 mortgage-ready buyers. You talked a little bit, Courtney, about some of the tools the city currently has in place, the Housing Opportunity Bond, the Housing Trust, the work that the mayor's doing. On a policy side, can you just speak a little bit more about how the city is focusing on promoting Black homeownership?
Yeah, so I think from a few different levels, of course, there are the tools that you just mentioned that are critically important, and that's the down payment assistance, where getting money into the hands of potential home buyers as fast as humanly possible when they're ready to buy. You got to meet that moment, as Nancy just talked about. It means investing in our neighborhood organizations like ANDP and Neighborhood Works and the Urban League. It means that, of course, we are providing access to counsel so folks can have their wills in order. But what it also means is that, you know, one of the things that government can do that few, if anyone else, can do is we can't let the market run wild. Right? And so right now, we've got a market where interest rates are going up, mortgage rates are going up, wages are stagnant, and the investors, as you all have heard today, are having a field day. And so we're going to take a very long, serious look at what city government can do, what we can do working with our county and state partners to help mitigate those negative effects. That's one side of it, right? That's the regulatory side of it. I think the thing we can do without talking to anybody else is land acquisition. God isn't making any more dirt. And so to the extent that we can buy land as fast as humanly possible, like the world is coming to an end, because for many of our neighbors and the mayor's constituents, it actually is. And so what does it look like to do land acquisition all throughout neighborhoods in this city that are booming, and then actually use that land the same way you would do a multifamily housing deal, right? So you put that land, you finance that deal using government-owned land, quote unquote, right? You allow the home buyer to buy themselves out of that land in a partnership with the city. What you will find is that the cost of that house is going to be significantly lower when you pencil out the deal that way. And so we're looking at innovative opportunities like that. We're partnering with organizations like Landed, which is a different take on down payment assistance. It's a shared equity program that requires a home buyer to put nothing down, and it's available to teachers, firefighters, police workers, and every last city employee, to make sure that folks ultimately get into the homes that they so richly deserve. The last thing I'll say is we've got to think differently about how, again, we finance these deals overall. And so, the city, quiet as kept, has first right of refusal on every tax lien that happens within the city proper. You're going to see Mayor Dickens move aggressively to take advantage of those properties and then reinvest them in the same neighborhoods with the same kind of folks, us, if you will, who fortunately, may have had hit a bad spot in the economy. And so we're going to put those homes back on the market and partner with many of the folks in this room to do so. So we've got a lot cooking.
That's awesome. Thank you. Dr. Cade, you talked earlier about the vast network you have. You live here in Atlanta, but cover a pretty broad network across the southern region. So you're able to see not only what's happening here in Atlanta, but what's happening amongst our neighbors. Recently, I learned about Orchard and Ribbon, and wanted to, and we've talked a little bit today about investor activity also, which is sometimes driven by an all-cash buyer market. Could you talk a little bit more about how that particular market is impacting the Black homeownership gap, and any kind of best practices or what you've seen across the region as we look to closing the homeownership gap here in Atlanta?
Thank you for that. I won't speak to the institutional buyers that are buying the homes, but I will speak to some new avenues because many of you are realtors and realtists in the room, and we've seen that particularly for minority home buyers or home buyers at 80, 120% of AMI being outpriced or outbid by cash buyers. And so now what we've seen happen in markets where we're serving is that there's new programming that talks about all cash offers. You too can be an all cash buyer, and some of you are nodding your head, you've probably heard of it. Well, what those programs are is for the ones I've seen and the ones we've seen in the communities are through partnerships with realtors and subsequently with mortgage companies saying, we'll go forward and bring forth a cash offer for you. There are some stipulations in this offer. You have to go and get pre-approved with one of our partner lenders, make sure that you have your earnest deposit, but when the offer goes forward, it will be a cash offer. The reason that's important is that I think someone had said, I think Nancy said that if you're participating in some down payment assistance programs or some other programs, sellers want the fastest, easiest, safest way to sell their home. Well, if you're going through some of the programs that are out there now, and I appreciate that we have FHA and other programs, but there are stipulations to those programs that sellers are hesitant to participate in. The Georgia Department of Affairs, the city has down payment assistance, wonderful programs, but the sellers are hesitant to participate in. So these cash offers are now equating something from a borrower. A black borrower is offering a cash offer. It's really not the borrower's offer, it is an offer. And then subsequently behind the scenes, there is either one of two ways that this is occurring. One is that the offer is made, the financing is there, and whoever makes the offer, they do close on the home and you're able to do the transaction after that closing. The other is, let us make an offer, you can buy later. And that's the one that's pretty scary. Because as you've seen and you've heard that some of the new pathways to home ownership often put black homeowners into a crisis situation because they don't understand the terms. So you will put an offer on a home, you're able to go out, find your home, we'll put that offer in. On the back side, it's kind of like a lease purchase option. You get the option of first refusal, but you're a renter in that property. It doesn't disclose the renter rate. So now you're still in a rental, but it's a home of your choice for a future term. The problem with that is that we haven't seen the partnerships that we said are so important. Courtney said it, Loretta said it, Nancy said, I've said it, is that education. Where do we fail as black homeowners? Education, having the information, understanding not just how to get in, but the entire process to close, even to close and post-closing. And so not understanding that, but getting a carrot that says, I can help you buy a home, it is really a concerning issue in communities with these cash buyer opportunities. We don't understand them, first off. I don't know if the realtors, mortgage companies, home builders, housing counselors, we don't understand how are the home buyers that we are working with going to understand, and how do we help them be successful with this new pathway to home ownership. I'm not saying it's a wrong pathway, but anytime it's a new pathway and we haven't been educated on it, and many of us have been in this arena for years and decades, we need to have that education, partner with it, and also allow them the opportunity to see the options. Great options that we've heard from Courtney that the city's bringing forth. Great options that Truist has brought forth with down payment assistance. But if the home buyers don't understand those options, sometimes those carrots are real shiny and real quick. And so that's what we're concerned about. And so we're looking to continue the education, not just for the home buyer, for ourselves as well.
Thank you. And then lastly, Loretta, you talked earlier about the inclusive lending model. And then earlier today in our presentation, we talked a little bit about the barriers historically that have stood in the way of specifically black households achieving home ownership. But I wanted you to just tell us a little bit more about any product innovations that Truist is focusing on as you're promoting home ownership.
Thank you. So when I think about product innovation, we have our Fannie Freddie products, we have FHA, we have VA, we have USDA. Those are all great products that are already there and available. I think one of the biggest concerns around those products is that access to credit. So we're not doing a very good job of making sure that everyone understands what goes into their credit report. There was some information that was shown earlier about the disparity between mortgage-ready borrowers. So when you think about a percentage of borrowers who have a below 600 FICO score, there's a huge opportunity for us to educate and have conversations around what goes into my FICO score, what drives my FICO score. And I think that there is a lack of knowledge around that, and that's where that education is definitely going to be extremely important. So when we think about product innovation, I feel like we always talk about, well, what new shiny, object that you were just talking that we can provide. We hear a lot about special purpose credit programs that are really being heavily talked about, and it's really more focused around how do we look at non-traditional credit that's really going to help get more borrowers into homes. So I feel like we have all of these products, but we really need to be partnering with our the GSEs, Fannie, Freddie, FHA. They need to make these programs a lot more easier. We need to, because from a lender's perspective, we basically sell, of course you guys know, to the investors, and we are held to their requirements. So when we're trying to think of innovative ways that will help, especially for Black home ownership, we're still thinking about, okay, well, is this something that is going to be purchased by our investors? So I think the lenders have an opportunity to have conversations with Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie Mae, to say these are the types of underwriting criteria that we need. My background prior to being in strategic growth, I was an underwriter management for 10, 15 years. I have a passion behind it. And I just really feel like we're not looking at credit the right way when it comes to being able to provide that additional access to credit. So I think that's one of the biggest barriers that we have. It's not necessarily creating a new product, it's making those products that we have accessible because the people are out there. Now, when I was talking about inclusive lending, that is also something else. You know, we always talk about, and I'll just share that education just doesn't come. You were saying it's just with us as well. It's not with, you know, just our borrowers. So even when we're talking to our sales partners and our operations, mainly our sales partners, we have to educate them so that they understand that just because you hear the term minority borrower, it does not necessarily mean low to moderate income. We have to get that mind. Thank you. We have to change that mindset that just because I am a minority borrower that I fall into this below 80% of area median income. There's a lot of wealth in our community, and I don't think that it's being fostered enough. And I've actually had, in the industry, I've had some, you know, sales partners going to various conferences where they say, well, what product do I offer a minority borrower? Wow. And I'm like, what do you mean? There is no minority borrower product. You know, all of our products are, and this is in the industry, these are conversations that I'm having in the industry, and it's a culture change. We have to be able to make them understand that, you know, just because minority, again, does not equal low to moderate income. And honestly, my team, we're actually starting that education within our loan officers, where we're going on what we're calling a roadshow, where we're having these conversations with our loan officers, because if we're hearing it in the industry, you never know how it's in your own backyard. So we want to make sure that our loan officers understand that inclusive lending means overall. We have a large amount of Black wealth doctors. Most lenders have a doctor program. Truist has a doctor program. But how many of our loan officers are going to those wealthy Black doctors and having that same conversation? How are we going to lawyers and all of those, you know, big educators, and making sure that they are part of that same bucket that we're looking at when we're thinking about how we're treating non-minority borrowers? So those are the things that I'm really passionate about in strategic growth. And again, it goes back to the education.
Wow, well, thank you. And I would ask you all to join me in thanking our panel. I know we're short on time, but this has been great. Thank you so much.
Are we done?